Joining me now is Republican presidential candidate and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Welcome, Governor. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Well, so let me ask you first about Hunter Biden.
Yep.
Because how rare is it, you're a former prosecutor, for a plea deal like this to fall apart?
It's rare. It definitely is in my experience. And I ran the 5th largest office in the country for 7 years, and it is rare for this to happen. But I will tell you that I was talking to members of my team in the last couple of weeks and said, I just don't believe the judge is going to approve this plea deal in the way it's been laid out for a few reasons. One, because you get 2 misdemeanor tax counts after a 5-year investigation. Secondly, you dismiss a gun charge that has a 10-year mandatory minimum. And 3, you say the investigation is still ongoing. Like, how do you square those things? Usually when someone pleads, it's over. And the plea wraps up all parts of any investigation that you have into that particular person. So from the beginning, I was concerned about the way they investigated this case. Were they being transparent about what else they were looking at? Was U.S. Attorney Weiss being candid about the authority he had? Because now it looks like he didn't have the authority, right? I mean, if in fact the investigation is still ongoing, is the same guy who said that he was agreeing to the plea deal, U.S. Attorney Weiss, also saying, well, no, it's not all done? Or did someone above him tell him it wasn't all done?
But that was in his press release. That was his press release that said that the investigation is ongoing.
Right. And so my point, though, is, Andrea, to say that and to also agree to a deal, was he signaling that he wasn't happy about this and that it was being imposed upon him? Because to put that in, the two things were contradictory in my experience. It's not that it never, ever happens, but it is so rare, and certainly not in a high-profile case like this. And so I think it justifies the judge looking at this and saying, I'm not approving this. You guys either have to resolve your issues or not, but we're not going to play this kind of game. And so this puts Hunter Biden and his lawyers in a really bad spot. And if I were Hunter Biden, I'd be looking at my lawyers saying, what the heck are you guys doing here?
And is the Republican, the Republican House members, are they correct to now say that we want to connect this and any further investigation to the President of the United States on a completely unsubstantiated charge that he was involved with his son's dealings before he became president?
Well, look, there are obviously allegations out there from whistleblowers that are concerning. They are. If they're telling the truth.
The IRS whistleblowers?
Right. If they're telling the truth, then it undercuts what U.S. Attorney Weiss has said about his authority. It undercuts some of the stuff that they're walking away from here in not making Hunter Biden take a plea to any of the foreign activity. So, look, I think what I've found in these investigations, especially the complex political ones, is that you never know where it's going to lead. And so I think it's appropriate for a U.S. attorney to say, if you want a plea deal, you got to tell me everything, Hunter, that you were involved in and who was involved with you. Otherwise, we'll indict you and you go to trial and take your chances. That's the way I would be doing this. And if he's got information that involves anyone connected with this that may have done something wrong, up to and including his father, he's got to be clean about that. And I don't know that he has or hasn't, but it doesn't sound like he has.
But what about the argument that other people who haven't paid their taxes but do pay back taxes, penalty, and interest, whose name is not Biden, don't get indicted, don't get criminally prosecuted?
Except that's not the only part of the investigation, even in what they've said. He also lied on a federal gun permit. And his father was the sponsor of that bill, Andrea, to make it a 10-year mandatory minimum to lie on a permit. It is hard for me when I've heard Democrats say over and over again, we need more gun laws. Well, you can have that argument, but you better enforce the ones you have. And so I'm not necessarily objecting to the way they resolve the tax case. My concern is, how did it take you 5 years to get there? Concern one, because it's not a complicated tax scheme. It's money that he got in pretty directly that he didn't pay taxes on. Doesn't take you 5 years to figure out. We're not talking about a complicated tax scheme where people are trying to avoid taxes in a way that gets them in trouble for tax evasion. But secondly, the gun charge, if you dismiss that gun charge, what are you getting in return for that as the government? I wouldn't just give that away if I were the prosecutor.
Well, they were deferring, and there was still going to be sentencing.
Right, but listen, deferring on this, Andrea, in my experience, is dismissing, because unless the guy gets himself in trouble again with federal law enforcement, it's going to go away. And so it is a dismissal, and you're not getting anything that I could tell in return for that. And it is a open and shut case there. It's not like there's any question. He clearly had a drug problem at the time, and he mishandled the gun afterwards, and there's video evidence of that. So you can trade that away if you want, but you better get something in return. And I think what the judge is looking at probably here is she's saying, well, wait a second. If you're doing this and you're still investigating other things that may wind up coming back to Hunter Biden or start with Hunter Biden and go other places, how am I supposed to approve this plea deal? And I think it reeks, Andrea, of confusion, and they shouldn't be confused here. This is pretty straightforward, and if they are, that may mean that there are different people making different decisions, and that's opposite of what the Attorney General has told us. So people better get their story straight, and I think that's what this judge is saying.